what the machine.
Hello. I hope I'm live. I am. Okay, I'm freaking live. How horrible, how terrible. This is so terrible. I have to live stream. I promise. Because I was like, oh. Also, wait a second. I'm so confused. Wait, I'm so confused. Hold on. Hold on, everyone. My OBS. I don't understand. Okay. Yeah, sure. But I just need to log in. It's probably this, right? Okay, it is. Now I just have to be like, hey, yeah, this is me. And I have to go like, it's a me, a Mario. Okay, but why can't I see my YouTube chat? This is upset. I'm upset. I don't understand. I'm very upset. Refresh. 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 Okay. Everything is back up. I'm not upset anymore. Okay. Well, I'll. The stream was supposed to start at 5, and it isn't 5. So I'll give everyone like a minute. I have to start drawing. I do so much, everyone. I've committed so much. I read too much now, and I can't stop reading. I went to the library the other day, and I got fucking 12 books at the library. Oh, sorry, I bought 12 books from the library because my library was selling books, and some of them were like 50 cents each. They're like between like $5 or so and 50 cents each. And so I bought fucking 12 books. And I'm going to go back. They're doing a fucking books selling like September 18th, I think. And I'm gonna buy fucking even more books. But I assume they're not gonna cost like 50 cents each. But that'd be really cool if it was, but probably not. Probably freaking not. Um, oh, also, by the way, for people who don't want to donate through Stream Elements, if you give to my Patreon, just say you gave to my Patreon whatever amount you used, and I'll thank you for that as well. Um, because I know I had one person who was like, I just don't want to have to do like the whole PayPal thing, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I can just set up a Patreon. I can just do that. I can just do that, I guess. That's like, eh. Yeah. I can't get it to work. That's fine. Okay. All right. But now, since it's 5 now, let's get started. And we are on the contribution of economists. Let's zoom. Let's zoom in. Oh. Oh wait. Sorry. My brain is I'm out of it. Let me do something. Let me do something. Uh okay, I posted the link here. Yeah, you can just copy this. You can just copy. Orbiter announcements. Yes, please. Frickin' send. Can't believe this. Can't believe I'm frickin' reading. Readings for nerds. The contribution of economists. With the economists of the old regime, the collective was stifled, obliged to define itself as a natural and self-regulated domain subject to indisputable laws capable of producing values by simple calculations. I'm actually already gonna fucking highlight this. That's actually a really good opening line. All this changes if the discipline of economics as discipline is freed of the obligation to reflect the economy as infrastructure. That's very interesting. I like that. I don't know what he means, but I think I kind of get what he means by that, but I don't know what he means by that. We're on 277. No, we are not. So we are not that far in the book. We're on 275, which is page 146. Oh, we're on 33. Polanyi, Polanyi, 1944. After a century of blind improvement, man is restoring his habitation. And then 144. No. No, not 144. Okay, I think this is it. No, this isn't it. Okay, this is it. Run 150. The economists, or rather the economizers, the economy performers, will then be able to contribute in a decisive way to the creation of a scenario for the common world. Number 6. We're actually just going to. You know what I'm actually going to do? Boop. And we're going to make it orange. Call it come on. C. No, right. Z. There we go. And that horrible writing says scenerization. Let me fix the Z. Can I even fix the Z? No. Okay. That works. That works. I can read most of that, so it's actually fine. And you guys can decipher most of it, I assume. So, it's okay. Since they are becoming sorry. Let me restart actually. The economists, or rather the economizers, the economy performers will then be able also before we move on. Will then be able to contribute in a decisive way to the creation of a scenario for the common world. Also, maybe I should actually sorry. I'm having a moment. I'm having a freaking moment, guys. We're gonna make it blue. We're gonna be like, and when people ask us, they're gonna be like, "Why are you blue?" And I'm gonna be like, I don't have to tell them. I have to explain. Will then be able to contribute in a decisive way to the creation of a scenario for the common world, scenarization, since they are becoming capable of reinforcing the difference between the inside and the outside of the collective. Talking about economics as a specific sphere reduces politics to a rump agency that cannot do the job. offering the collective as a whole a scale model that designates explicitly what is taken into account, internalized, and was rejected, thrown out, externalized. This is what makes it possible to dramatize, to theatricalize the general accounting of the collective at a given moment of its exploration of the common world. When Homo economicus designated the foundation of universal anthropology, the inquiry into the composition of the world ceased at once. But if we use the term global economy to designate a provisional version offered to the collective that will allow it to accept one list of entities and reject another, then economics, like all the social sciences, plays an indispensable political role. It reflexively represents the collective itself. Highlight again. Neither the sciences nor politicians manage to dramatize the states to such an extent, since they never end up with one single bottom line. The simplistic character of which economics is so often accused becomes, on the contrary, its most striking quality. The only one that can produce a scale model of the common world. Thinking they had come across an instance of self-regulation, the adherents of natural equilibria made a small mistake on the placement of the prefix self. Yes, economics is a self-reflexive discipline, but it does not designate any self-regulated phenomena. It simply allows the public to see itself, to conceive itself, to constitute itself as a public. I don't know. I think I understand his point. I think I do, but I do very much feel like I'm missing some background knowledge on why this point is a thing. Oh, sorry, we're on 275. Wait. Yeah, okay, this is it. We're on 36. By extending Semmel's reflection on money, one can imagine more so the generalization of the numerical will offer social metaphysics, other possible summaries besides the language of money. See, for example, the fascinating effort in cyber geographies in Roger and Maris 1999. We follow them. We note that economics is not necessarily the definitive form for publicizing calculations and hierarchies. This is something maybe I should look at, because this seems to be, I guess, where he's getting it from. At least partly. 151. We shall be told the economics must not be very useful for maintaining the separation of powers. Number 5. And number 5 is quite literally this. Let's see, where is it? Boop. Boop. We'll just do that. So that is what it is. It is just it is the separation of powers. Since more than all the others, they have contributed to we shall be told that the economists must not be very useful for maintaining the separation of powers. Since more than all the others, they have contributed to confusing it, the impossible distinction between facts and values. This would be to misunderstand to what extent the competencies of economics are transformed once the distinction between economizing and what is economized, between the requirements of the lower house and those of the upper house, has been recognized. As soon as the work of documentation, instrumentation, there's an explanation for this. My brain isn't working well enough to say it. Okay. Uh, what is it? It's putting in place versus putting in order? What is it? Sorry. Uh, putting. One of them is putting in order. Putting. Uh, sorry. Okay. What it is it's the difference of taking into account and putting in order. So that's the distinction. Um, and the difference is one is kind of I am going to say be producing boundaries. Boundaries might be the wrong thing to say here. It's producing how do I explain um concepts. It putting in taking into account is putting new concepts, saying what is it's the sorry easy way to explain it. Um, Taking into account the upper house is supposed to define the inside and the outside of the collective. That is its purpose. But the lower house, I believe, which is putting in order, is defining the relationships between the things in the collectives. And for Latour, these are two separate activities that should not be mixed. They should not be mixed. Um, um, and so yeah, and that's the thing. And so that is why there's the difference between economizing and what is economized. But bam, my brain isn't working, and I still figured out how to do it. So we're all good, actually. Everything's all okay. As soon as the work of documentation, instrumentation, and formatting that accountants, statisticians, econometricians, and theoreticians practice every day has been brought to light, we notice that there is now virtually no relation between the proliferation of the links that connect humans and non-humans on the one hand, and what economics can say about them on the other. Common sense knows this perfectly well. It is quite prepared to poke fun at the economics' weakness in predicting even the success of the most trivial gadget, not to mention the onset of crisis. But here again, a weakness is transformed into a strength. No, none can confuse the indispensable work involved in translating the attachments of people and goods by reducing them to calculations on paper with what really happens in these people's heads and through the power of these goods. By their very weakness, the economists thus do a marvelous job protecting the inquiry of the upper house into the exploration of the connections of its necessary reduction by the lower house. Precisely by reducing the attachments in an unrealistic way in the form of calculations, economics protects the distinction between the task of taking into account and those of putting in order better than any other profession. No longer can anyone confuse the world with a spreadsheet. Fucking fire fucking line. If we stop a moment to measure the immense difficulties of the task of hierarchy and institution, we can readily grasp the crucial contribution of the economizers, for they're going to make it possible to give a common language to the heterogeneous set of entities that have to form a hierarchy. Number three. And number three is literally, it's called hierarchy. Nothing could link black holes, rivers, transgenic soybeans, farmers, the climate, human embryos, and humanized pigs in an ordered relation in one single cosmogram. I forget what I think a cosmogram is what is I think that's a no, that isn't a Stenger's term. It's someone else. I forget their fucking name. There's a term they use, and it's kind of what it sounds like. I'm pretty sure it is. It's just kind of what it sounds like. It's a bit more complicated, but it is kind of just what it sounds like. Thanks to the economic calculation, all these entities become at least commensurable. If we imagine for a moment that this calculation describes their deepest values in a way that the primary qualities were supposed to define the ultimate meaning of things under the old regime, you're obviously on the wrong track. But under the new constitution, no one would make this error any longer, since the distance between the reality of the things that are produced, purchased, appreciated, consumed, rejected, or destroyed, the fragile surface on which the accounts are inscribed, now appears fairly visible. Once again, economics draws its strength from its weakness. I wanted to say something. Don't remember. So it's all good. On externalities, I'm following here the introductory essay of Coulon 1998b, The Political Consequences Drawn in Coulon, Lescoumes et al., 2001. And then 152, I think. And I read the right one, right? I think I did. Let's go back. I read 35, right? Oh no, I've been off. I've been fucking off so hard. Sorry. In John Dewey's sense. 1984. Okay, so this is the thing I wanted to highlight. I am so sorry. I am so tired. This reversal had already been carried out by the beginning of the last century by Gabriel Tard in a book as little known as it is astonishing, on passionate interests. And we're actually going to highlight that. That seems like a good thing to look at. That seems like good to look at. I am so tired, though. I don't know. I can't believe I made such a horrible mistake like that. Instead of defending its virtues by imagining a metaphysics, an anthropology, and a psychology entirely invented to serve its own utopia, as was done in the 18th and 19th centuries, perhaps in the 21st century, when I finally recognized from its account books that economics has the unique capacity to give a common language to those whose task is precisely to discover the best of the common worlds. And if we go back, that's the thing that I fucking already read, but that wasn't actually it. 36. By extending Semel's reflection on money, one can imagine, moreover, the generalization of the miracle will offer social metaphysics, other possible summaries besides the language of money. See, for example, the fascinating effort in cyber geography, Rogers and Mayer's 1999. We follow them, we note that economics is not necessarily a definitive form for publicizing calculations and hierarchy. And I already read Dewey, didn't I? Yeah, I already did. 152. There has surely been enough complaining about the econometers' hardness of heart. They are accused of reducing the rich universe of human relations to the icy calculation of interest. They are being blamed, however, for a vice that can never be theirs. Goods cannot be reduced to economization any more than people can. What economization allows, however, is to give the provisional version of the common world. Number 4, the justifiable character of the result of calculation. Number 4. There's perplexity, there's consultation. What else is there? What else? Hold on. I'm gonna find it real quick. Found it. 4. Institution. 3. Hierarchy. Yes. 152. We'll make a little note of that. I'm gonna zoom in. Enhance. Okay, it would help if you like Insta institution. It's a fucking blob. Just a fucking blob. My circle. My O is just a fucking blob. It is a literal circle. Yeah. The modeling of relations in the form of accounts makes visible some consequences that no other method could reveal, and makes it possible to close off the debate with an argument. By documenting the whole set of arbitrations in the form of statistical tables, economic theories forecast concerning speculative movements. We can add to the trenchacy of a political decision, the consensus of a scientific decision, the revelation of a bottom line. Of the bottom line, not of a, of the bottom line. We want to institute the common world so that it will last. The world is better than we could have hoped. The state of law is expanded and not reduced by a commonization. Provided that we do a good job measuring the advantage we gain from having the various callings collaborate on the same functions, isolated from politicians, scientists, and moralists, the aptitude for calculations came down to short-circuiting all other forms of debate in order to decide about externalities. And we also read this one, but we're going to check it out again. And that is 37. On externalities, involving here the introductory essay of Coulon, 1980, and the political consequences drawn in Coulon's Schemes et al. 2000. And then 152. Bottom page. There we go. I fixed it. Added to the scientist's ability to institute the chain of causalities, the politician's ability to make enemies, the moralist's ability to fish out those who are excluded, see below. The same aptitude for calculation becomes one of the more reasonable ways to articulate one's preference in a vocabulary that fulfills both the requirement of politicity and that of closure. Come on. Show up, please. Thank you. To honor economics, even while stigmatizing it, people have called it a dismal science, on the pretext that it introduced the cruel necessity of Malthusian nature into dreams of abundance and fraternity. Malthusian. I don't know much about this frickin' Malthus. About this fucking Malthusian nature. Oh, okay. I think I get it. Malthus, uh, fucking however you say his name. Um, Malthus is how I'm gonna choose to say it. Malthus was like, uh, populations grow bigger than people, and that's why people are poor. I assume something like maybe I don't know. I'm making that up. I don't actually know if that's true. But that's what it. I assume that's what it is. It's that people are going to be poor if the population keeps growing, because other things. Because the population grows faster than the other resources that we need to sustain said population. And I think that's what Latour means by this, but I'm not sure. I'm not no. I'm not no Malthusian. Freed from its own dream of hegemony, economics becomes, on the contrary, the slow institutionalization of the collective, the aggressive and painful passage from scattered propositions by humans and non-humans to a coherent but provisional calculation, the optimum way of dividing up the common world. This calculation has been somewhat downsized to the dimension of spreadsheets filled in offices by a few thousand specialists, tens of thousands of statisticians, hundreds of thousands of... Where does this start? I want this. $275 again, and we're on 38. This whole argument is comprehensible only on condition that we take the term calculation literally and not metaphorically. Either one can carry out a calculation, and accounting instruments in the broad sense are required, or else these instruments are lacking and the ties in question remain incalculable. See Bruno Latour, 1977. This is what precludes any metaphorical use of calculation or economic capital, especially to explain social life. This is very interesting. I need to look at this as well. And also probably this. There's too much to look at. There's too much to read, guys. 153. Economics is no longer politics. It no longer dictates its terrifying solutions in the name of laws cast in bronze that would be external to history, anthropology, and public life. It participates humbly in the progressive formatting of problems, setting down on paper arbitrages that no other procedure would manage to reduce. Dangerous as infrastructure, economics becomes indispensable as documentation and calculation, as the creation of a paper trail, as modelization. Okay, so I think I get what he's trying to distinguish it as. How do I explain this? How do I explain what he's trying to do? As infrastructure, he literally means like as one of the things structuring the world. That's not what economics for him should be doing. It's instead just simply something that documents, it calculates, it creates models, and it like as he's saying here, creates models, it leaves paper trails, and that's what it's supposed to be doing. It's not supposed to be the structure. One of the structures holding things together is instead I don't want to say commenting on the structure, because structure for Latour doesn't like talking about structure, I think, in the way that I'd have to be meaning it. But like describing the situation is how I'm gonna say. Is I guess what I'm gonna say. There's probably a better way to say this, but I don't know. My brain is not working very well, as I've said many times, but yeah. We shall say little about the task of perplexity in consultation, for the dominion of modernism has been such that political economics ought to describe them, whereas it scarcely touched them at all. It scarcely touched perplexity, the task of perplexity in consultation, is what he's saying, by the way. If that wasn't clear. 39. The economics alternate between excessive modesty and excessive pretension. If one praises the intensity of their influence on the economy, they humbly claim to have no responsibility in the matter, denying any performative role in the formatting of connections. Conversely, they assert with assurance that even if economics did not exist, the things to be described, the economy itself would exist as such. If they are to be a bit civilized, they will have to recognize their power. The economy arises from the practices of economics and its limits. The economy extends no farther than the network of its instruments. And we are still on 153, I think. This is the astonishing paradox of a movement that does not even have words to speak of the intimacy of the relations it has woven, more than any other collective, between goods and people. The old version of economics, consisting of objects to be bought or sold, and of simple rational subjects, blinded us to the depth and complexity of the connections that humans and non-humans have always woven together, links ceaselessly explored by merchants, industrialists, artisans, innovators, entrepreneurs, and consumers. It would take a very different anthropology to begin to account for this immense world common to the old worlds and the new, other than by ersatz economics. I don't know what that means. 276. See the work that has been done in economic anthropology, especially Thomas, 1991, and Cacot, 2002. Blue. Why are they blue? Why are you blue? Oh, ersatz means like fucking fake. Ersatz means like, well, not fake. It means like substitute. It means it's. I'm pretty sure by. I doubt he means like literally fake. I think he probably does just mean like substitute economics. No, wait. Let me look up, instead of just ersatz, let's look up economics. Refers to two main concepts: either the dismissive term for flawed or superficial economic theories, or a term for alternative economic systems that are not based on the dominant neoclassical model, such as those found in heterodox, post-Keynesian, or ecological economics. Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Also, hey, Shakespeare. This is not the goal of the present book. Let us simply realize that no one is better able to detect invisible entities and involve them in the collective, number one, perplexity, than those who are on the alert for the possible attachments between humans and non-humans. You can imagine, in order to redistribute bonds and passions, likes and dislikes, recombinations of goods and people that are as yet unknown. By freeing up this confidence, we're going to link the fate of humans and non-humans, possessors and possessions, more intimately. Persons will be more solidly associated with goods, and goods with persons. And I'm gonna highlight that, and then I need to zoom in again so I can write. Easier. Here we go. Come on. P. Perplex. Uh. Perplexity. That's what it says. Yeah. There we go. Let me center it again, though. Can I zoom in one more time? Maybe. Yes, I can, and it's fucking visible. There we go. More remarkable still is the aptitude of economics to fulfill the requirement of relevance pertaining to consultation. No, don't want that. Number two, by discovering for each type of attachment the process of interesting, that is, of inducing interest, which is proper to it. The juries that alone are qualified to judge it, whether in the form of consumers, specialists, experts, amateurs, or tasters, in the form of exploiters, exploitees, outcasts, or profiteers. And then we like that. We want to go to 276. See the work. See the work that has been done in See the work of Antoine Hinian on taste and the production of interest in things themselves. Hinian, 2002. 153 still, right? Okay, we're actually going to do that because it seems that they're a bit different. Oh, we're on 154. Sorry. By all possible mediations, interests are going to become articulable. If we're going to talk about liberating the productive forces, we have to leave the upper house. We have to leave the upper house full latitude to articulate the processes of interesting. Under the old and new regimes alike, economics sums up the attachments, but the means of the term summary has changed. Whereas before the summary was substituted for the whole as primary qualities are substituted for secondary ones, from now on, the summary is added to the whole. With the old regime, one could dispense with everything that one did not incorporate into the calculation. The new constitution, we retain in memory, we would be at risk of forgetting. We cannot even hope ever to be rid of these things. And then back to 276.42. Capitalism can be defined not as a particular infrastructure, but as internalities without the externalities that it has produced. In the literal sense, it is an artifact of calculation, with all the performative effects that ensue. It is thus useless to denounce capitalism. On the contrary, denunciation only reinforces it. Capitalism must be rewrapped in the externalities that have always accompanied it, while economics cannot be allowed to confuse itself with politics. On all this, see Tarda 02 and Polanyi, 1957. Polanyi. Wait, wrong color. Sorry, guys. There we go. 154. And then where do I want to start with this? I'll just do here. I like here. Even more than through the action of scientists and politicians, with the help of economists, propositions can be expressed. Interests have a say in the matter. The circulations of its tracers, economics makes the collective describe. Yay! Yeah. And now we're on to the contribution of moralists. This will be the last thing we're going to be covering today, and it's only like 4 pages long. 5, 6. It's not that long. Not that long. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be covering like 10 pages, basically, is what it'll be. And so now we're on the contribution of moralists. Let us recall the goal of our itinerary once more. By enumerating the successions of gifts set down in each of the baskets for the various fairies, we're going to begin to understand the nature of these functions other than as hybrids of science, politics, administrations, and morality. If they give us for a moment the impression of a badly stitched together consensus, it is because we can only gradually wipe out the artifices of a long separation between the various professions. Later in the second section, we shall discover the functions of the collective for themselves as roles as classic and as coherent as those of executive, legislative, and judicial branches. Let us now move on to the fourth calling that we have chosen to reinterpret, that of the moralist, figure 4. Yeah. Okay, also, I was right. Um, each of them do have. I know it's not showing the politicians and the scientists in here, but I was right. They do have all their skills are distributed across the houses. Uh, they're not bound to across all of that, all of the thing. It's not bound to one particular thing. The old split between facts and values obliged moralists, as we saw in Chapter 3, to flee back towards the foundations or limit themselves, to procedures or else to imitate in vain the type of certitude that naturalism seemed to offer. A certitude that naturalism seemed to offer. 276. To solve the problem of morality, utilitarianism, with contemporary versions renewed by Darwin, uses versions of science, nature, or economic calculations that no longer correspond, as we have seen, to the real virtues of either researchers or economizers. To short-circuiting sciences and politics, utilitarianism creates an impasse over the proper contribution of morality. It would be hard to do worse. 154. Sorry, I'm 155 now. Detached from facts in all their details, moralists could be of no use. Once they have been brought back to the right path, as it were, it obliged to participate in the common task, their qualifications become indispensable again. We can define morality as uncertainty about the proper relation between means and ends, extending Kant's famous definition of the obligation, not to treat human beings simply as means, but always as ends, provided that we extend it to non-humans as well, something that Kantianism, in a typically modernist move, specifically wanted to avoid. And he fucking defined morality. Oh my god, I just went over some of. I've been reading AIM, and okay, okay. This answers one of my. This section is probably going to answer one of my things about it. It one of them is called like morals or morality. It's one of the domains he sets up. Um, and it's it's basically this. It's it's basically what this paragraph said, but just shortened a little bit. 276. Sorry, I was struggling to remember what page we were on. What page I was trying to flip to. The same argument is made by the founder of deep ecology, Arnaise 1988. Immanuel Kant's maxim, "You shall never use another person only as a means," is expanded in Ecosophy T, the code name Nace gives his philosophy. 2. You shall never use any living being only as a means. Nace's limitation to living beings reflects the same error Kant made, even if what he takes into account is a little broader. Card, as usual, had anticipated the argument in 1902 when he gave political economics the following goal. The ideal end towards which humanity tends, without yet seeing it clearly, is on the one hand to create with the elite of all the planet's fauna and flora a harmonious concert of living beings conspiring in a system of ends, the very ends of man freely pursued, and on the other hand to capture all forces, all inorganic substances, to make them work together as simple means to serve the henceforth convergent and consonant ends of life. One must adopt the standpoint of this distant goal in order to understand to what extent the basic concepts of political economy require revising. And we actually should probably do this. Sorry, I'm trying to in my head. Um, I'm pretty sure I understand the difference between means and ends, but I'm trying to. Oh, sorry. I was trying to like verbalize it in my. Sorry. I was trying to put it into words, and I was struggling to. The difference between what it means to use something as a means versus to use something as an ends. Um, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. It'll be really easy. I just need to like stop for a second and think about it, and it'll be really easy. But I'm just struggling right now. Because of my fucking brain is fried. Ecological crises, as we have interpreted them, prevent themselves as generalized revolts of the means. No entity, whale, river, climate, earthworm, tree, calf, cow, pig, brood, agrees any longer to be treated simply as a means, but insists on being treated always as an end. This in no way entails extending morality to the natural world, projecting the law extravagantly onto mere brute beings, or taking into account the rights of objects for themselves. It's rather the simple consequence of the disappearance of the notion of external nature. There is no longer any space set aside where we can unload simple means in a view of ends that have been defined once and for all without proper procedure. Inanimism has disappeared, along with the unanimism of the old politics of nature. 276. You're on 45. It is no good complaining, as the critics of deep ecology do, that morality is being extended to inanimate beings. Exactly the opposite is the case. We have finally withdrawn from inanimate beings the enormous moral privilege from which they benefited under the old system, to allow them to define what is, and thus gave them an indisputable path to enter the common world. The last table in chapter 2. As usual, legal scholars more rapidly freed from the constraints of modernism, the ones who have innovated in experimental metaphysics. Stone, 1987. More than moralists, who are bogged down in the distinction between objects and subjects. I think we're on 156. It is not because they know what must be done and not done that the morals can contribute to the civic virtues, then, but only because they know that everything that will be done well will necessarily be done badly, and as a result will have to be done over again right away. No one knows what an environment can do. No one knows what associations define humanity. No one can assume the right to classify ends and means once and for all, the right to lay down the boundary between necessity and freedom of discussion. Such are the concerns the moralists are going to introduce to all the procedures of the collective. One second. All right. Sorry about that. Had to do something. This requirement to treat the no entity simply as means, which is always found in expressions such as renewable resource, sustainable development, and principle of precaution, as well as in pity or simple respect, is going to contribute in a decisive way to the task of perplexity, institution, and totalization of the collective. This is going to make them paradoxically much more difficult to accomplish without discussion. I'm going to highlight this as well. By definition, the second house can fulfill its duties only if it treats a certain number of entities as simple beings, the name of other entities to which it has decided to assign the role of higher ends. Number 4, hierarchy. This one is hierarchy. No classification is possible without this dismissal. Scientists, politicians, and economists equally obsess, though for different reasons, with the closing of the collective, are thus always in error in the eyes of the moralists, who are going to equip the entities that have been set aside the right to appeal that they can use when, in order to fulfill the requirement of closure, they are driven out of the collective in the name of their provisional insignificance. Let us recall the 8,000 French highway fatalities, which became mere means for the automobile, raised to the rank of sovereign good. Enemies, excluded parties, and oppositions are, thanks to ethics, going to remain not simply entities that have been externalized forever, but also entities that will have to be reintegrated at some later point in the form of friends, included parties, potential allies. Because of this very equipment, Because of this very equipment, the exigency of external reality, number 1, perplexity, is going to become even more acute to the extent that the moralist scruples is added to the questioning of all established paradigms by the scientists, the danger of being unfaithful felt by the politicians. Those who have been excluded from the collective are going to come back all the more quickly to knock on the door, to the extent that the moralists will, so to speak, go looking for them outside the collective in order to facilitate their reentry and accelerate their insertion after accompanying them during the preceding phase and covering them in supplicants' cloaks. We bring the combined attention of scientists, politicians, and moralists to bear. We can better assess the state of alert or precaution that will characterize the first house to be shaken up by the slightest perturbations. We'll even be able to compare collectives with regard to their degrees of sensitivity, which does not mean sentimentality, and judge the quality of their civic life according to the yardstick. This one I'm having a lot more trouble with. I think it'll probably make more sense as it goes on, but I think I get it, but I can't tell if I'm supposed to be getting more, or if what I'm getting out of it is actually totally fine. Is I guess the big thing. Common sense does this without difficulty. Also, footnote 46. Common sense does this without difficulty. In Le Monde of July 1998, a journalist, Jean Gives Now, praises the French system of blood transfusions because it was able to move quickly to a state of alert with regard to an infectious agent called TTV. The rapidity with which the French health authorities reacted this time, the Lancet came out, is markedly different from the crashations of 1985, the year of the HIV/AIDS contamination of the blood supply. And he adds, today, scientific uncertainties no longer lead to inertia on the part of the responsible authorities. The new virus thus bears witness 13 years later to the ground that has been covered, service of public health. On the crucial importance of the precautionary principle, Trottoir 2003. We're going to actually highlight that. And it'll be 157. And it's this one. More generally, the moralists add to the collective continual access to its own exterior by obliging the others to recognize that the collective is always a dangerous artifice. In the eyes of morality, in the eyes of morality, indeed, the closure of the collective, number 6, by any global scenarization at all, is not only impossible, but also illegitimate. It would presuppose either the inclusion of the totality of beings in the kingdom of ends, as Kant would have it, or a premature closure that would return too large a number of these beings to the status of mere means, or else finally, the definitive acceptance of a pluralism that would renounce the search for a common world. Against the politicians and scientists who require the definition of an inside and an outside, against the economists who are quickly satisfied to have externalized what they did not know or to take into account, the moralists thus continually recall the concern with the resumption of the work of the collective. I'm actually going to probably highlight all of this, because I think this gets to his point. What I think is his point quite well of what moralists do. Without the moralists, we would risk seeing the collective only from within. We would end up reaching agreement at the expense of certain entities that would be definitively excluded from the collective and considered as mere means. Or we'd be too quickly satisfied with the plurality of incommensurable worlds that would lead us to abandon forever the concern for one single common world. For the moralists, we can never call it quits. For the moralists, we can never call it quits. With them, the collective is always trembling, because it has left outside all that is needed to take into account to define itself as a common world. A spider, a toad, a mite, a whale's sigh. These are perhaps what made us fall short of full and entire humanity. Unless it was some unemployed person, some teenager on a street in Jakarta, or perhaps it was some black hole forgotten by everyone, the edge of the universe, or a newly discovered planetary system. Oh, that sounds so fucking... He better reference a book there. He better reference books, because that actually seems really interesting. Wait, we're on 277 now. Such is the moral and civic limit of a major study by Boltanski and Thevenot, which scandalously is not yet available in English. The hypothesis of common humanity creates an impasse for the most important of moral requirements. It leaves open the question of what constitutes or does not constitute humanity. 157 still? No, we're on 158. Wait, are we? Yeah, we are. Far from opposing the politicians, as the old distributions of roles would have it, the moralist requirement of starting over again is going to enter, on the contrary, into consonance the work of the politicians to keep on mending the fragile envelope that allows them to say us without being unfaithful to their constituents. To every we want politics, the moralist will add, yes, but what do they want? Far from opposing the scientists, the moralist will add to the stabilization of the paradigms constant anxiety over the rejected facts, the eliminated hypotheses, the neglected research projects. In short, everything that might make it possible to seize the opportunity to bring new entities into the collective that are at the limit of the sensitivity of the instruments. It is quite clearly the task of establishing hierarchy, number 3, that we can expect the most of the moralists. Left to themselves, as the old constitution so casually envisaged, they could not contribute to anything. They did not have to manipulate the raw materials of scientific arrangements, political deals, or economic restrictions. Once they come to grips with these heterogeneous entities to be arranged in order of importance, the moralists will add a decisive competency, precisely that of arranging them all, however contradictory they may be, in a single homogeneous hierarchy, for like a team reconstituting a puzzle, of which one member is exclusively concerned with discovering that the pieces gathered together in fact belong to one and the same set. would appear absurd in the ethics of foundations. On what basis might we declare a migratory bird more important than the time-honored customs of the hunters of the Bas de Somme? Becomes indispensable. We leave aside the search for principles to become attentive to the requirement of a unified ranking. We do not ask the moralists to tell us in what order all these entities are going to be arrayed. How would they know on their own, outside the progressive experience of the collective? In particular, we do not ask them to imitate one science or another by pulling an unforeseen accommodation out of a hat. Nor do we ask them to give lessons to politicians by adding a new compromise. We ask them rather to remind us that we have to find one order and not two. As long as you have not succeeded in finding us the right combination, they can say to scholars and politicians alike, there will not be a better common world. The requirement will be all the stronger in that, freed from the obligation to be politically, scientifically, and economically reasonable, they know this task cannot be accomplished without treating certain entities as mere means. They alone have the duty to require the impossible, to be neither clever nor industrious. $48. 276. Sorry, 277. 48. If the intelligible role of the committed intellectual speaking in the name of science and authorized by science their short-circuit politics is fortunately disappearing, moralists rediscover a function that needs neither science nor the prophetic tone nor illusions of unveiling to be accomplished. See Walzer, 1988. We'll make that blue. And the question is, why the frick are you? It was a vice, a vain pronouncement, a grotesque pretension to separation, when it remained far away from the matters of concern, becomes a civic virtue once again. As soon as moralists team up with researchers, politicians, and economizers to carry out their task of hierarchization. To collaborate with them while holding firmly to their own requirements finally no longer means to compromise. Antigone begins to carry out legitimate moral work only if she finds in her interlocutor a politician who was a little more political than the Seneschal Creon. To reinforce the frontier between the two provincial powers, number 5, the moralists offer a contribution that is precisely the inverse of politicians. Whereas the latter distinguish in the classical manner political philosophy between deliberation and decision, freedom and necessity, the moralists remind us that whatever the requirements of the decision may be, it will again be necessary to deliberate by crossing the frontier, this time going in the other direction. I'm going to highlight this. I like this sentence. And I think it's a good sentence. In other words, they keep the relation between the two houses from being a one-way street, and they oblige the procedure to form a loop right away. They make it possible for a continuous shuttle to link the two enclosures. Moreover, they make an important contribution to consultation, number 2, regarding the conditions of discussion, as they make sure that each candidate to existence is evaluated by a jury corresponding to its own recalcitrant problem, not through indifferent questions raised for other purposes. Here again, thanks to them, means become ends. This is good. Thank you for showing me it. 277. And then it's footnote 49. On this obligation, see Desprez 2002, The Ethics of Discussion, was it has been extended to non-humans and humans alike. The obligation to consult those about whom is speaking depends not only on morality, but also on administration, the guardian of procedure, as we shall see in chapter 5. And we are on 160. The moralist protects the disruptors, the actors, the recalcitrant parties with an inviolable right of asylum. In the old framework, the moralist cut rather a sorry figure, since the world was full of amoral nature, society was full of immoral violence. They could only fit in the secular order with recourse to a transcendent world, and exclusively to formal procedures, or abandon all pretension and calculate the others while using a different quantum of happiness and pain. In this new framework, they hold an essential place, since they are no longer an inside and an outside, defined by essence, but a slow work of externalization and internalization. There's no work that has to be done over and over again. Thanks to the moralists, we can keep porous the fragile membrane that separates the collective from what it must be able to absorb in the future if it wants to produce a common world, a well-formed universe, a cosmos. Thanks to the moralists, every set has its complementary counterpart that comes to haunt it. Every collective has its worry. Every interior has a reminder of the artifice by means of which it was designed. There exists a real politic, perhaps. There's also a politics of reality. While the former is said to exclude moral preoccupations, the latter is nourished by them. For political ecology finally to rediscover an adapted morality, it's necessary to extend the fundamental uncertainty over the exact relation between means and ends to all entities, and not to go seeking a finally assured foundation in the rights of nature. We can measure to what extent morality was perverted by naturalism, that of modernism, as well as that of the theory of ecology that expends modernism, or realizing that its goal is the exact inverse of the one it had been led to play, being forced to protect the human from objectification, to protect the object from human mastery. Under the new constitution, the role of the moralists is precisely to avoid falling into the trap into which they would find themselves with a simply human society surrounded by a simply material nature. And then back to 277, and we're on to 50. We can understand the signal weakness of Ferry's attack on ecology. If he had succeeded in revising the instant distinction between moral subjects and inert objects, he would only have arrived at immorality. 160. The morality of political ecology no longer risks believing in the lasting existence of such an outside or such an inside. We cannot come to an understanding politically, scientifically, economically, without setting the majority of beings aside. Thanks to morality, outcasts will be able to make themselves heard once again. And this virtue for humans alone will soon be seen as the most immoral of vices. And that is the end of the stream for today. I was going to clap that I said not to. You might have still heard a little bit of it, but I decided not to do that. So I didn't want to. I thought that'd be too loud for stream. I didn't want to do it. But anyone who joined, thank you for joining me. If you at all like what I do, you can donate. I have in the pinned message stream elements, or my Patreon. If you want to donate through there, and I'll thank you. And I'll thank you if you do. I think I have 4 tiers. I literally just made it before stream, but I already forgot how many they are. I think it's 1, 5, 10, and 20. Sorry, 2, 5, 10, and 20. I made it 2. I made the first one 2. And the second one 5. So yeah, you can do it right there. And I'll thank you. And you don't even have to do it like every month. If you want to just like, the reason why I made a Patreon anyway was because someone was like, I don't want to use stream elements. And I was like, that's understandable. I was like, I'll just make a Patreon. And if you want, you can donate to me for like a month. And that can basically be you, doing whatever. And that can be just your little donation. whatever the fuck. So yeah. Anyways, everyone, I hope you enjoyed stream. Sorry I was a bit out of it. I wasn't very talkative today. Um, I was having a hard time verbalizing um all the things I kind of wanted to say. So sorry about that. But we'll be having another stream tomorrow. Probably. If I'm not feeling too bad, I have work tomorrow, but I get off earlier than I normally do, so we probably will. But yeah. Anyways, thank you, and everyone, have a lovely rest of your day.